Hey, friends, welcome back to Listen for Real. It's Jen Oliver. I've missed you. How are you all? Let's get back on the couch together, shall we? I am here with my dear friend Bara Mann, and we met just last year. But oh my word, I'm so happy that she is open to a conversation here with all of us because she is one of those people. The moment I met her at TEDx Folsom. And the minute I met her, I sensed, oh my gosh, she's somebody we could really go deep already. This is the types of conversations we have. And you all know, like, that's my jam. I live for these deeper, meatier, um, meteor. That's what I want. Meteor, significant. That's what I want. Conversations that have some significance. They're not just about the usual drivel. And I knew that the minute I met Bara. And then me, Bara, and Sarah went on a walk together. That fully solidified and deepened our relationship. And just, it's a love affair ever since. I just adore them. And so one of the things I was hoping when I asked Bara to come speak on the podcast is just that we could get into some of those fleshy conversations with all of you, because that to me it's the best, right? I mean, when we all can be together and connect and go a little deeper in our day, or just get really still and listen more profoundly to one another, it's rich. And Bara knows, in my women speak circles, one of the phrases I use is that we listen so deeply for a person that she cannot help but blossom in our presence. And that's what I feel when you and I talk, Bara, for sure. And so would you just tell everyone hello? You know, we're on the couch. They can read all about you in my show notes. I always say this at the beginning of every podcast. Like, everyone can read about you there in the real official capacity. But would you just share what's important to you in the world and who you are and what you want everyone to know? And then I want to dig in as it relates to our stories, our relationships, and honestly, what it's like and what the world would be if everybody felt like they fit in and felt good in their skin with the people they were with, the relationships they were about, the meaningful work they were engaged in. Like, they just felt good in their skin. Like, I approach that in speaking, but there's so much more. And I feel like you can really speak to that as well. It's been a big part of your journey. So tell everyone about you, and then we'll dig into all the goodies.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, Jen. I just love talking to you and
Yeah.
the opportunity that I get. Um, I am a human being who loves other human beings. I love connection. I love deep, authentic connection. I love play. I love joy. I love fun. I love feeling good. For me, a lot of times that involves being outside or having real conversation with other people, like what you do on here.
Yeah. Okay. Can I point something out already?
Please.
Everything you just said, we are so trained to give like our dossier, and here's what I do in the world. Here's the things I'm accomplishing in the world. Here's my roles and here's my titles. You didn't give even one of those. You totally talked about the way you want to be and the way you move in the world and the way you operate in the world and what you value, which already just to me tees this up, right? Like, how did that happen? That is that the presence you've always had? Because you and I have only known each other a year. Is that the presence you've always had, or is that evolved?
That's definitely evolved. And I mean, you set me up for it, right? When you asked me about me. You didn't ask
Yeah.
what do you do? And I love leading with who I am, what makes me me versus what I do for work. It's just such a better way to meet someone, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So will you start with some of your stories about the desire to fit in when you haven't felt it? First of all, what did that create? I think when someone doesn't feel they belong, or they feel they're on the outside, that's when we see some of the worst stuff in humanity. Like, it actually just made my throat catch as I began to see it. I think about some of the most horrendous things we've seen, even atrocities that people will commit. And often it's someone feels unseen, unheard, unknown, unvalued. They don't fit in, they don't belong. And so I actually think this is a really important part of this conversation to start out. And so I want to have you go first on that, because mine is a little bit complex, and my answer is going to be a little different. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that belonging and feeling like I truly fit in has been a huge part of my journey. I grew up in a really small community, so it felt really important to fit in, because if one kid didn't like you, then it could mean that you had absolutely no friends. Biologically, we're driven to fit in, right? Like, we can't survive on our own as human beings. We're pack animals. So I think that it's not my fault, but I always felt this strong desire to fit in. And sometimes I would try to mold myself to fit in. Other times I would actually inadvertently really, really stand out because I was looking for acceptance that way. Um, when I moved to a new school in seventh grade, I really felt like I was the weird kid in the school. And I really wanted to belong and to make friends. So at lunch, I would go out on the grass quad in the middle of where everyone was hanging out, and I would do somersault after somersault after somersault. Not like the cool kinds of somersaults where you're like flipping in the air. I'd be like rolling around on the ground, which like did not help me fit in. It's like, it's so funny to like look back on this now, but back then it was really embarrassing. But I think it's such a good example now of a lot of times when we try to fit in, we actually do the exact opposite, right? We like
Yeah.
make ourselves seem different than we are. We make ourselves seem weirder than we are. We lose our opportunity for that authentic connection.
Yeah. Okay, but I gotta just ask, because I want to get into the mind of that young girl who is like, I know I'm going to do somersault after somersault after somersault across this quad because they're going to flock to me and be like, we want you in our friend group. You're so rad. You're so cool. So, A, did it lead to any of that? And B, like, is that what you were thinking? Because it's so interesting to me how we thought. And for some, that would totally work.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that maybe it was more like, okay, well, if you guys aren't going to know me for who I am anyways, like, you're going to think I'm weird, I'll give you weird.
Oh, I love this. Okay, I get you.
But no, it didn't work at all, because that's not who I was. Like, I wasn't a
Right.
gymnast, you know?
No.
If I was, maybe then other gymnasts would come find me and want to connect with me. But it was just me just desperately seeking some sort of attention, trying to stand out or fit in. And it
Yeah.
didn't do either of those things. So I did have a group of friends who, some of them were really amazing. Others of them, I think, were the people who just like, I'm like, all right, well, they're willing to eat lunch with me, so I guess I'll eat lunch with them. We had
Mm-hmm.
very different viewpoints around the world. A lot of them came from a very religious community that was very different than mine, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't really accepting of me. They wanted me
Mm,
to be this person they wanted me to be,
mm,
and to change me into that person. So it didn't work. It's a
mm-hmm.
long answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel very fortunate that there's definitely, I don't know if fortunate's the right word actually, but I definitely was that chameleon kind of person, and I think I still am. I could go and coexist in almost any group. So I was one that had a million different groups I kind of moved from. And I'd be in this group and I'd be in that group and then I'd be in that group. And I was just sort of like, I was into everybody. So one minute I'm a rocker girl, one minute I'm like going to youth camp. Another minute I'm the band girl, another minute I'm the partier. You know what I mean? It was just all of it. Next minute I'm in the east side and just thinking I'm badass. And then I'm, hanging out in wealthy Los Altos or whatever. It was just like this constant I don't know if that's shape shifting. I don't know the best term for it, but that's what's coming to mind. And I feel like I was authentic me, but what's interesting is then as an adult, my authentic me was always there, but then I definitely adopted some roles and I definitely adopted some identities that for the vast majority of my adulthood, I took those on. And it's interesting to see that now because I'm now in a place in the last couple years of really re-looking at who I am and where I'm going and what I value and what I do in the world. And my roles are really being stripped away. My identities are being stripped away. And I'm just getting back to this essence of like my soul, who I am, this life force that I am, this limitless, loving, fun, wild explorer person. That's like clearly me. And I just think, and I look at any of the damage I've done, which I have harmed plenty of people inadvertently, but I accept responsibility that any harm I've done was because I was not operating, even though I belonged and even though I fit in, who was fitting in was not fully me. And I feel like that's got an insidious thing it does to us, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I relate to that a lot because, I got through seventh grade and eighth grade and then, found my different groups of friends. By the time I was a young adult, like in my 20s, I was kind of having a similar experience to you where I had these different groups of friends, but I didn't feel that way. So it's
Hmm.
really interesting. I remember one friend of mine in my like mid 20s would always say like, "Wow, it's like you know everyone and you have all these different friends in all these different places." And I was like, "That's interesting that you think that. Like I think these people just tolerate me kind of." So
Hmm.
that was what was going on with me, which I've realized since talking about it, a lot of people have that experience too. I'm like, yeah, these people are inviting me, but they don't really want me here. Like, yeah, I'm part of this group, but like, not really. It's not the same with me as it is with other people.
Yeah.
And when I eventually realized that what was really going on was that I actually was holding myself back. I had this energetic wall up and I wasn't letting people get close because I was trying to protect myself. Then everything shifted. And eventually I got to really live that full joy that we're talking about, that full expression of who I am.
Okay, but what caused that shift? Like, there's always some impetus. Um, was it something, a struggle? Was it a new realization? Was it a trial and tribulation type setup? Like, what caused your shift?
For me, I was on a retreat and I had my first energy healing experience. And the healer asked me, she's like, "What's up with this wall that you have between yourself and others?" And I was like, mind blown. I was like, "Oh my God, I never thought about it in this way. I didn't know I had this thing, but you're so right."
Whoa.
And I thought back to when I was on this birthright trip. I was with 40 kids my age or young adults my age. I was like 21 or something. And everyone's forming these deep connections. And I was having a great time. I was partying with everyone, but I didn't feel like I had those same connections. I felt like I was separate from everyone. And I thought back to
Mm,
all these other experiences in my life with friends where I didn't quite feel like I was their friend the same way that they were my friend. And I thought about the retreat that I was on itself, where my situation was a little bit different. I was the only one on that retreat who'd never met anyone else, including the people leading the retreat. But I felt like I was separate and other people were treating me as separate. And then I asked them that night, I said, "Hey, this is what was said to me during my energy healing. What do you guys think? Do you guys feel like I'm, you know, separate from you?" And I'm like, "Have this wall up?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." They're like, "You're warming up now, but you've totally felt separate and like things are changing." And I was like, "Yeah, I feel that too." And I was blaming it. I probably didn't say this at the time, I was blaming it on them,
Yeah.
versus on me.
That's so illuminating, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when we see things like that, I mean, I immediately hear that and go, who among us goes, "Oh my gosh, that's right. I've been putting up my own barrier, my own hindrances here. I thought it was everyone else and the way they're perceiving me, the way they're looking at me, the way they're hearing me, whatever it is," right? Like I think about it as a communications and speaking coach, and I think the same thing when somebody is trying to communicate and express themselves and they're thinking they're not being heard or that other people aren't listening or appreciating what it is they're saying. And what they don't realize is like they've got this invisible barrier or this filter that the words are coming through or this tone. It's like we don't know what we don't know. And then suddenly the liberation that comes when you're like, what? And then you had the courage, okay, and I think this is big for all of us. You had the courage to ask them, "Hey, do you guys see this?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah." What? That's so huge.
Yeah, it was really huge. And then I got back from that retreat. I wanted to learn to be an energy healer. And I went to this Reiki master first to get a Reiki healing from him, make sure I
Yeah.
wanted to work with this guy. And he asked me, why do you think you're in your 30s that you've never connected with someone? Like you haven't found that love yet. You're in your 30s. Why do you think that is? And I was like, dude, it's not everybody else.
That's oh, you just gave me chills. So then is that what also changed everything relationship-wise for you? Because suddenly it's like blinders are removed?
It slowly started to, but I think it took me a while to really, really dissolve the wall, fully open up. I think the relationship area is probably one of the last ones where I fully unfolded. And part of that was due to all these preconceived notions that I had that I didn't realize they were someone else's and not mine. You mentioned the identity piece. It's
Yeah.
funny how much we can wrap into this sense of identity that oftentimes can be made up.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things, I love talking about this all the time because it's been such a big part of my journey, especially these last few years, and my freedom and just my joy and me living more fully and doing more in my work and guiding people is this notion that um so it's the most important thing I could say right now is that idea of holding ourselves back. It's just so very, very painful. So I'm thinking back to what you said and the separateness. And I think it was pointing something out to me. And it's interesting that what just occurred. So A, I got distracted, and B, that um I lost the words completely. And I totally think what just occurred, and that's why I want everyone, like, to recognize this for themselves who's listening. It's like our ego even goes in and goes, "Ooh, you're going a little deeper here. I see your instinct wants to go deeper and reveal this. Nope, not yet. We're gonna shut that down or we're gonna distract you," which I think is so fascinating. And I really do think, as I just was like, you all, it got cut out of the podcast, but I had to like stop our recording for a minute because I absolutely lost my way. And then what I do, and I train my speakers to do all the time, is like, okay, connect to your body again, take a big deep breath, and the right words will come. And Bara can attest, I sat there and I sat there and I breathed and I stayed and nothing was coming. I thought, that's interesting. Right. So I love, and you're smiling, Bara, because like, oh, energetically or emotionally, something was just happening there. That's so it's fascinating. So I just wanted to, me, guys, I always am going to tell you what's going on. I don't even know why I take breaks or cut things out because always the real stuff I end up telling you it happened anyway. But anyway, Bara, back to you for a second. What was that just, what did that make you think of just now?
I think what it made me think of is like I could look back at my journey and say, man, my life would have been so much better if I was in college and I was really feeling that love and allowing it in.
Hmm.
We could always look back on our lives and say that, man, if I met the life coach that I met when I was 35, when I was 25. But the thing is, all of that was such an important part of my journey. I think it got me to where I am today, and it also helps me to help others through it.
Totally. I agree so much. It's interesting. I had a really beautiful conversation with my daughter who's an adult now and has a child of her own, and I've changed a lot. And she said, "Mom, you're not the mom who raised me." And it was a little hard on her because I raised her in a very different world with a very different belief system, a different faith practice. My spiritual walk, everything about me was different. I was married. The way I approached my marriage with my husband was different. There was just so much um, that created sort of a box of certainty for her. And now I'm this really different person. And I really appreciated A, that she had the vulnerability and courage to say that. B, I can totally understand, like, when your mom has been your mom and been a certain way your whole life, and then she's just becoming this radically different person. Her worldview is different, her lifestyle is different. All these choices she's making are just like, wait, what? That's a lot. And I totally understand that and get that. And so I just want to offer that for anyone else who's listening who's like in this transformation. I think it's Young Pueblo that says, allow yourself to transform as many times as you need to be fully happy and free. And I love that. And that's been really my journey is I have been transforming and changing, shifting friend groups a lot like when I was in high school. And not because I abandon those other people and don't love those other people. I do. They have been important parts of exactly who I am. But there's just so many shifts happening and they all feel very real and very present to me, and then they shift again and it feels very real and very present, but everything is moving so fast now. It's like maybe it's my age, I'm 54. Like, do you ever have this feeling like you're in this growth mode and that everything is like at a quantum leap pace, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is changing, this is changing, and this awareness, and then this epiphany, like it's escalating at such a rapid pace, which I love because I'm like an eternal learner and a grower, and my business is taking off and my personal life is taking off. And it's all amazing. But that's a lot for a lot of the people around us. And I want to ask you something too about our stories. And so we develop real allegiances with our previous stories. I'm learning this right now from one of my own TEDx speakers who's doing a whole talk on this. The allegiance and the enmeshment with our old stories. And now we're making new stories. And how can they all coexist in this like anthology that's filled with stories, you know? So how have you processed all that?
Yeah, well, I was on the other end of that experience you were talking about. You're changing and your kid was like, what's happening? Remember when I was going through all these changes and transitions, my parents being so worried about me and
Mm,
that getting into my head. And so sometimes I think it's important for us to separate a little bit, or maybe I realize, okay, I don't need to be telling them everything right now because
mhm.
they're going to worry and I can't handle their anxiety. I'm already anxious about completely like shedding who I was and my sense of identity crumbling. Uh, Something that I really love is tying all of these things together, like how you were talking about. So, like, my parents could get really worried about me because they're like, you're changing, you're becoming someone so different. How did you go from being an engineer to now you want to be a life coach? Like, what even is a life coach? And for me, I'm like, actually, this isn't very different at all than what I used to do. I still get to do the things that I love doing at my corporate engineering job. I still get to look for the best parts of people. I get to make people feel good to help their best ideas come to life. I get to be creative and take all that I know and then build it together in the right way to get the right result for the right situation.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like you're helping people engineer their best life.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, that
Thank
makes
you.
all the sense in the world, and here's the resources. Like, what does an engineer do? That's so cool, and that actually is so translatable to what probably is why you're such a good coach, is that skill set.
Yeah. Like,
That's so
I'm
rad.
sure it helps a lot. And back in the beginning, I didn't have that understanding. And I was like, well, what is going on? Like, am I losing my mind? I was listening to those voices around me. I,
Yeah.
who am I now? Like, am I delusional? I heard something
Mhm.
the other day that someone was saying that, like, a little delusion, we should all want a little delusion, right? But
Yeah.
I didn't think that way at the time. I was like, have I gone crazy? I need to talk to someone to make sure that I'm okay. And I think it's really important to have someone that we can talk to and make sure that we're okay as well.
Totally. Well, and you're reminding me of something, from earlier, was this idea too that just because there's a story that's in our head, just because we've told a story, as some of us, I think, tell the same stories over and over because we wish them to be true. They may not even be totally accurate. Have you ever been around or done this yourself where if I tell the story enough, I will believe it, they will believe it? I'll just keep spinning that same narrative. And I think that's important for us all to pay attention to. And one of the things, like when I'm coaching with someone, I always ask her to like, look at what stories or voices are in your head, and are they even you and your truest voice? Or are they not? Or are they old and they've served their purpose and now we need to lovingly release them? And so it's like a it's a beautiful process, I actually think, that we can look at the different voices, the different stories, the different stuff that's coming up. Look at each one with a real curiosity and an incredible generosity and grace for ourselves. And then go, okay, is that still serving me? Is that even my voice? Whose voice is that? Is that my ego? Is that my mom? Is that, the culture? Is that social media? What is it? So we can call it into question and then just go, oh, okay, maybe this no longer serves, or I can see it for what it is. And now I want to kind of dismantle and quiet some of this noise in my head, this chatter, drop into my body and go, oh, there's my truest voice. Oh, that's the place I want to show up from and speak from. And there's the stories I want to tell and build, right?
Yeah, I think that's so huge because we really, really limit ourselves by the stories that we believe about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I refer to this a lot in my work, and I'm always telling my clients to look at the work of Byron Katie. I think you and I have talked about this too. Byron Katie has a book called Loving What Is, and she's well known if you Google her for her 4 questions, and it's called The Work. And it's basically 4 questions of inquiry where we take a story or a belief or a narrative and we ask ourselves if it's true. Like, can you absolutely know this is true? And who would you be without this thought? And it's just a really rich, simple 4 questions, but all of a sudden, I feel like it's a portal. It opens a door to seeing things. If you're really willing to ask the questions and listen more deeply to yourself, it's so illuminating. So illuminating. Like, is there a truth about you or in your life or a story that you go, oh my gosh, that I've totally taken that through inquiry and went, "Oh, no, it's so different." I love your first one about the barriers and about that you thought everyone else didn't want you, and they were going, "Oh, no, we felt the barrier from you."
Yeah, one that's really funny that just came up for me was a moment ago I was talking and I said, well, I still get to be creative. But when I was transitioning out of engineering, I actually really defined myself as someone who wasn't creative. Isn't that a crazy thing to identify as a not creative person?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot of people say that. "Oh, I'm not creative."
Yeah. And I actually said that once to a yoga instructor, and she was like, oh, no, you absolutely are creative. And I was like, huh, okay. And then I reflected on it and I was like, actually, last weekend I made up a game. Like, that's pretty creative. But I still didn't see how creative I was. And now it's so funny because I've like rewritten that belief so much that I forgot that I even felt that way in the past, you know?
Hmm. How, okay, how do you, when you're coaching someone or even walking yourself through something, how do you dismantle or unpack a story or a narrative or a belief?
That's a
Like,
great question. Keep going.
yeah, I mean, do you, because I really feel this energy as we're talking, that we're offering permission for people to call into question their thoughts, their beliefs, their stories, and it gives them permission to change too and pivot from those beliefs, narrative, stories, right? And voices. So I would just love like how you see that process. And do you think it's different for everybody? Because I mean, you've coached different people. They have a different way of looking at the world. An engineer, for a perfect example, not I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but of the many engineers I know, which my dad is one, I come from a whole family, every man in that family is an engineer. There's more black and white thinking. They see things with a very clear, um, and they would probably all say they're not creative. And I'm like, I think that's so creative, actually, but whatever. But then other people see things in a really different perspective or from a different perspective. So, what do you think on that?
I think it can be really different for different people and for different situations for different people. A lot of my beliefs that I've rewritten, my clients' beliefs that I've helped them rewrite, we've done it in different ways. So
Mm,
sometimes I've used energy healing. Sometimes it can be so simple as like taking an assessment. Like I love the positive intelligence saboteur assessment. People take that, they look at it in these scientific terms that says you have a really strong pleaser in you. Like you are hyper vigilant. And they're like, oh, yeah, I am. It's
yeah.
really easy to see how that's holding you back. A lot of times for these deeper, more intricate stories, I think talking about it really, really helps. That's part of why I love coaching so much. I have multiple coaches for different things in my own life. When
Yeah.
you can really, really dive in and they can ask you questions and reflect back, and then you have to go deeper, it can really uncover a lot. If a
Mhm.
coach isn't accessible to someone, you just aren't in a place to spend money on a coach, you could even just talk it out onto like a voice recorder
Mhm.
and just really go and keep asking yourself these questions. Like, is this true?
Mhm.
Why do I believe that? Well, what else do
Mhm.
I think? And keep going from there and then play that back. And you might think, what is wrong with this person? Why would they
Mhm.
possibly think these things? You know, like, would I let my friend think these things about her? A lot of times we wouldn't.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, what else are you thinking as we start to wrap up? What can I just ask a question about energy for a minute?
Please.
Because you know this stuff. And I actually think our voices and our stories have energy, our energy, I believe they give life to something in the world. So if I am thinking something and then I give it voice, I feel like that suddenly gives it energy. And I don't know if that actually works. Like if you went with I think it's first law of thermodynamics that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It only can change form, right? Or location. I think that's something if I'm rattling it off. And so I'm kind of like, wait a minute. I know this kind of is sounding esoteric, but I think our words and our stories carry really weighty energy and they are powerful. And that's why it's so important how we speak and the things we say and the stories we reinforce. And I think that is totally pertinent to this subject that we're covering right now. And I just would love your take on that.
Oh, yeah. I think it's absolutely huge. I remember one really impactful moment where I was like, had started this new business and I decided I was going to be a coach and stuff like that. But I didn't feel like a coach at all. And I didn't have many clients yet and was just starting out and really struggling with that identity. And then I went to this networking event where they were like, okay, say your name and say what you do. And so I was forced to say, hi, I'm Bara and I'm a coach. And it was like everything changed for me in that instant. I was like, oh, yeah, I am a coach.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah. And then I started feeling it and believing it. And then clients started flowing in. You know, I did the same thing when I wanted to be speaking more. I was like, wait a second. I don't need to wait to be on X number of stages before I'm a speaker. I've
No.
spoken. I am a speaker. And just starting to talk about myself as a speaker and a coach. Suddenly it shifts the way that I see things. And then it also shifts the way other people see me. It shifts the opportunities coming to me. It shifts the opportunities that I'm open to. And it's just really wild to see how quickly things can unfold for someone when they change the way that they talk about themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like everything from I'm convinced that I don't get sick and I've been so healthy because I have historically been very healthy, but then I reinforce it because I'm like, you guys, I just don't get sick. I am so fortunate to have this incredible immunity. COVID, literally, I never got COVID until for the first time, just a few months ago. So it had been like 4 years, 5 years. I don't even know how many years now it's been, and it was all around me all the time. But I actually felt like I also reinforced and doubled down on, and I wasn't consciously like some people will repeat a mantra, and I see value in that too. I think sometimes we need to retrain our mind and we need to shift our thinking, and that means we have to use a conscious, intentional, deliberate means to change, to make that change. Like sometimes that's true. But I just invite everyone with us, like, look at our stories, look at what we're saying, look at the things we're doubling down on. Every time we give it voice, we're adding weight to it, we're adding velocity. I feel like it gains momentum, like a snowball going down a mountain. It gets bigger and fuller and stronger. It's picking up more as it goes. I feel like every time we speak about something, we give it voice, we give it momentum and energy and weight.
Yeah,
I
I
I
agree.
think I think that's some of the power of coaching. I'm like you. I have multiple coaches in my life. It's been probably some of the biggest and most fundamental part of it is the most fundamental part, I think, of my change and my evolution over these last few years. And coaches, if they're good at what they do, can help you look at your stories and your identities, and without your defenses coming up. Like they ask a question in such a way, or they pose a question. Yeah, they ask it in a way, or they pose a thought that causes you to look at it with like fresh eyes, or you're looking through a different lens suddenly. And I think that's really valuable. And I just encourage everyone, like all of us, as we're talking these kinds of conversations. I love you guys for being a part of this audience, because you go, okay, this is different. Okay, all right, I'm gonna think about this. But you go there in a conversation like this, listening to this right now. You do ask yourself harder questions. You do get really uncomfortable sometimes, and I want to invite that. Like, get uncomfortable to ask those questions, and call, to I don't know, call something out that you previously really had allegiance to in your own story or in your own identity, in your own roles, and go, oh, okay, there's something else. There's something else here I really want to look at. I want to be more transparent about, perhaps. I know that's what I'm wanting to do right now, a ton of. So of course, I'm blathering on about it for everyone else and encouraging everyone else to do it. And everyone has the dignity of their response, and they will or they won't, which I'm so cool with. But that's what's feeling super present for me, Bara. What about you as we wrap up?
Yeah, well, what this is reminding me of is circling back to what we were talking about in the beginning and this idea of fitting in and what would be possible if everyone felt like they were fitting in.
Yeah.
These conversations that you are talking about of these deep, authentic conversations with others and with ourselves aren't possible if you're concerned about fitting in, right? If you're trying to fit into some sort of mold, you
Yeah.
can't open up and be your full authentic self. That means
Yep.
that your mirror neurons are going to cause the other person to not open up and be their full authentic self. So by just telling yourselves, like, I belong as I am, like, boom. If that's the mantra that you're repeating and that's what you're getting to understand and learn for yourself, then you're going to be able to show up in all of these spaces. You're going to be able to unpack this deeper stuff because you're not going to be worried about your identity changing, right?
Totally. Totally. Ugh. I love all of this. I love all of this. Um, cheers to your coaching success. Keep going because you're so good at this. I love these conversations that we're having. And y'all, I just welcome more of this. I love that you're in my world. I love that you spend time jumping on the couch and going, okay, I'm gonna queue up this podcast and listen and find value in it and contribute. Like I really think that these conversations, if you're digging in and kind of pulling them apart in your own world and looking at your stories and dismantling certain voices, oh man, I just want to like cheer from the rooftops for you and go thank you for jumping in with us and doing this because I do believe it changes our lives. It changes the world around us. It makes things richer, better, fuller. There's no question. So love this. Bara, thank you, my friend, for being on the pod and more conversations for you and I ahead. There's so many collaborations in our future. And I love seeing you blossom as a speaker as well. And it's just a blast. It's a blast to be in your orbit. And thank you for taking time with me today and for all of us being together.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. And thank you, everyone, for being in this conversation on the other side.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, y'all. We'll see you next episode. Have a beautiful, beautiful week.